Alright, now we've transitioned seamlessly from cutscene into gameplay, and everything you're seeing today is running at 1080p, 60 frames per second on a PlayStation 4. As you heard during the cutscene, our mission here is to rescue Miller, but we're going to show you a shortened version of that mission today, prepared just for E3, to show you as much as we can in the amount of time that we have. So to start with, let's go ahead and open up our iDroid. And we see here our target area. But before we charge in, we should probably scout out the area, so we'll go ahead and mark a vantage point on our map here.
Marker placed.
That we can use to scout things out. And yes, your horse will do this in the game from time to time, but we'll just ignore that and move on. Now, as you know, Phantom Pain is an open world game. It's roughly 200 times the size of Ground Zeroes, and we're just going to show you a small glimpse of that today to give you a taste of the gameplay. It is a wide open world, as you can see. A lot of things to do, a lot of places to explore. It's also a living world populated by wildlife, and up ahead you can see some sheep on the road here. And the landscape is also dotted by human settlements, as you can see up and to the right. Alright, now you notice the background music has changed. It's gotten a little tense. That indicates danger nearby, so let's go ahead and take a look with our binoculars. And here we have a couple enemies, so we'll go ahead and mark them. Then we'll make our approach. That said, if we're up on a horse like this, it's easy to be spotted, so we'll use one of Snake's new abilities. You can actually hang off the side of the horse and lower your profile. And get close enough for the shot. Alright, his buddy did notice that he went down, so we're going to use that to our advantage now. See if we can sneak up behind him. And hold this guy up. Alright, now that we have him held up, we can interrogate him, get some info.
Spit it out.
And he's telling us where we can find a container with raw materials, so we'll check that out in a bit. But first, let's go ahead and get rid of these guys. And what you're seeing on the screen right now is the Fulton recovery system. Players who have played Peace Walker should be familiar with this system. Those guys are going to head back to Mother Base. And it looks like we have a curious visitor here as well. Perhaps he wants to go back to Mother Base too, so let's go ahead and help him out here. Alright, and he's down. So let's go ahead and attach the Fulton. And off he goes. Alright, then we'll check our map, and we see the container here that the guy was talking about. So we'll check that out. It's not too far out of our way. Note that the guys we Fulton back there will head back to Mother Base and become a part of your army, and you can assign them to various groups within Mother Base to do tasks for you. And as for the sheep, I'm sure we can figure something out. Alright, so here we have the container, and we see the guy here. There's a guy guarding it, so we'll approach carefully here. Now, we did mark our enemies, so you can see him through objects such as this wall. And it doesn't look like he's planning to go anywhere anytime soon, so we'll go ahead and lure him out. And this is one of Snake's new abilities. The knock is back in Phantom Pain. You can now perform this using your prosthetic limb, which means you don't have to be next to a wall. So that said, if you are next to a wall, you can perform some pretty brutal CQC, like so. And peeking out from behind a wall and shooting enemies is now faster and smoother than it was in Ground Zeroes. So we'll go ahead and get rid of these guys. And see if we can now recover the container. Alright, we gotta be sure to get off the container quickly there. If we were on the container when it went up, we actually would have been Fultoned along with it and gone back to Mother Base, which is a technique you may want to use from time to time, but of course that does abort the mission, so we don't want to do that for today's demonstration. Alright, so we'll move on. And you may have noticed also there was a weather report that came in over our iDroid, saying that there's a sandstorm nearby, and if you look up at the sky you can see that it has gotten a little gray now, and we see some sand kicking up here. Sandstorm is just one example of the dynamic weather that we have in Phantom Pain. The weather will evolve throughout the day. And during a sandstorm, of course, visibility is low, which means that enemies will have a hard time seeing you, but in turn, you also have a hard time seeing where you're going, so you have to be careful as you navigate through the landscape. Alright, there may be guys like this in hiding, and we've gone ahead and taken him out. Now you could Fulton this guy if you wanted to, but we won't do that today because of the sandstorm. The Fulton is influenced by weather, and during high wind conditions it can actually be blown off course, and if that happens, the guy you're Fultoning could end up dying, so we don't want to do that. As I mentioned, visibility is low, but since we marked our target, we can see where we're heading, so we'll just head towards the marker on screen.
The weather will clear shortly.
Now our iDroid is telling us that the weather is clearing and the 4 guys we Fultoned earlier have made it back to base. But before we move on, you notice there's something shining beneath this tree. So let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so raw diamonds. These raw diamonds are an example of raw materials that you can gather around the map. These are scattered throughout the landscape, and when you pick them up, they get sent back to Mother Base and add to your GMP. GMP being the currency in Phantom Pain, which you can use to upgrade your base, and also develop new items and equipment. Alright, so now we're at a vantage point that we set earlier, and off in the distance you can see our target in yellow there. So in there we should be able to get info regarding Miller's whereabouts. So let's go ahead and take a look using our binoculars. We see the target here, and there are some enemies, so we'll go ahead and mark them.